Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping ourselves in for a truly wild journey into existential chaos. Because the great architect of academic absurdity, Professor Alistair Finchley Smythe III, is not just back, he's taking his unique brand of intellectual meltdown to the theatrical stage.
That's right. We are deep diving into his latest project, the musical, the Epistemological Conundrum. Now, for those of you familiar with the professor, you know his history is less about groundbreaking discoveries and more about building these towering, beautiful castles of verbose theory, only to eventually admit they were founded on sand.
Right.
He's made a really dramatic shift, actually. Admitted his academic papers were, quote, mostly failures, and has transitioned into entertainment. He's got this company now, the Alistair Finchley Smythe III Media Group, or AFS3 Media.
And AFS3 Media isn't exactly known for, well, stability, is it? Their last big thing, that video game, the Conflagorillus Labyrinth,
Oh, yeah.
that was famously banned across, 3 continents? Because there were genuine concerns about the mental health of the players. Seriously worrying.
Absolutely. We're talking weeks of required institutional observation for some people who played it.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
A bizarre and pretty worrying journey into digital psychosis.
So not exactly light entertainment.
Not at all. And now, history seems to be rhyming, but maybe louder,
Yeah.
and definitely with more musical numbers this time. This new theatrical thing, the Epistemological Conundrum, it's getting banned too.
Again.
Yep, we're seeing multiple municipalities, entire nations, even like local homeowner associations, declaring it a public menace.
Seriously, HOAs.
Apparently so. You really don't need a PhD in anything to spot the pattern here,
Yeah.
right? It's pretty clear, pretty alarming. AFS3 media productions just consistently face prohibition. And it's typically because they seem to fundamentally destabilize the audience's grasp on reality.
Okay, so it seems like the professor didn't just, leave academia. He took his most chaotic ideas and kind of weaponized them for the stage.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So our mission today feels pretty critical. We need to unpack the details of this musical. We need to dissect its bizarre contents. And maybe most importantly, analyze this widespread, measurable, real-world instability it has apparently caused globally.
Right. And if you need the quick version, the elevator pitch to sort of prepare your mind, the Epistemological Conundrum is described as an intellectual spectacle, a theatrical experiment, and a darkly comedic exploration of the profound, the absurd, and the utterly ungraspable. It's deliberately designed, it seems, to challenge everything you think you know about existence, language, reality itself.
Okay. Let's maybe start with the man himself then. We need to understand the source of all this chaos because his background isn't just biography, right? It feels like the philosophical blueprint for the whole musical.
Absolutely. The professor's pedigree is, well, it's a performance in itself, a kind of conceptual fireworks display. We probably should recite his full title just to appreciate the sheer maximalism of his approach.
Okay, let's hear it.
He is Professor Alistair Finchley Smythe III, Ph.D., Regius Professor Emeritus of Interdisciplinary Ontological Research, of Epistemological Relationality, of Historiography, and Trivial Trivia.
Wow.
At the Reformed Regal Collegium of Esoterical Eccentricities, at the New London Consortium of Esteemed Suits.
That's less a professional title and more a 3-act play trying to prove adjectives can achieve sentience. It's glorious, but also incredibly confusing.
Can we maybe break down the core ideas in that title? Like, what does ontological relationality or epistemological relationality actually mean in his work?
That's crucial, yeah, because his academic work, even though he now calls it a failure, was highly structured. Ontological relationality is basically the study of how things exist. Not just their properties, but how their very existence is defined by their relationship to other things, or even non-things.
Okay, existence through connection.
Sort of. And then epistemological relationality is about how we know those things exist. It focuses on how knowledge itself is formed through the relationship between, the observer and the observed. Right. So his method wasn't just random rambling then. It's a structured argument about existence versus perception, drawing on history, science, philosophy, and philonoument. Okay. The title says trivial trivia.
Precisely. He uses this maximalist approach, finding these intricate connections between really diverse, sometimes totally incompatible phenomena. He builds these incredibly elaborate presentations. But, and this is kind of the core of his whole tragicomic thing, he has this history of eventually disputing all his own claims.
Really?
Yeah, he tears down the very intellectual buildings he just constructed. His entire body of work kind of becomes this thematic statement on intellectual futility and maybe self-doubt.
And that self-doubt, that's the engine for the musical's crisis, right? the promotional material sets that up pretty clearly. It says the professor was on the verge of proving this radical theory, something that would rewrite physics and philosophy as we know them.
And this is where it gets really interesting and kind of terrifying. That intense research didn't lead him to a definitive proof. It led him to this paralyzing, triple threat conclusion. He realized his work either exposed a fundamental structural flaw in the fabric of existence itself,
Whoa.
or, maybe slightly less terrifyingly, a complete flaw in his own methodology, his own thinking. Or, and this is the real existential gut punch, both.
The horror of discovering that not only is your life's work fundamentally broken, but the universe might be too.
Exactly. So the narrative thrust of the musical is basically the unraveling of his brilliant, verbose mind under that weight. The professor is forced to confront a reality that, as the promo material puts it so elegantly, might be nothing more than his own fantastical fantasy.
It's the ultimate high-stakes existential crisis, but with show tunes.
Pretty much.
And when a man whose research focuses on the relationship between things that might not even exist starts unraveling, the results are probably going to be colorful, maybe bulbous, and apparently highly flammable.
They certainly are. Which brings us to the stage action itself. The main dramatic focus, the villain if you like, is the professor confronting a non-corporeal singularity.
A non-corporeal singularity. Okay, that sounds like something I should probably fear, but also maybe ask to define itself.
Well, in typical Finchel-Smythe style, the singularity is defined mostly by what it isn't. It's described as a thing that isn't a thing, a perceptual vortex, a lacuna in the fabric of reality, and, my favorite, a question of existence posed without a predicate.
Wow. Okay. It's the physical manifestation of, profound ontological absence. He's literally debating emptiness on stage.
That's the idea.
But wait, if it's genuinely non-corporeal, how does he physically interact with it? Is it like a spotlight or just a really awkward silence?
The sources suggest it manifests differently to him than it does to the audience. For the audience, it's represented through, clever lighting, maybe a chilling lack of sound, the supporting cast reacting to an invisible force. But the professor seems to perceive it as a tangible opponent, which is why he needs to show off his other talents.
Ah, right, the circus skills. He doesn't just give long speeches, he has to physically embody the struggle.
Exactly. And his personal display is, well, it's astonishingly diverse. It includes genuine fire breathing, which, as we'll get to, was maybe a bit too effective at one point. Tightrope walking across the stage while apparently debating Kantian ethics. Juggling 3 objects that seem to appear and disappear midair.
Midair? Seriously?
Yep. And the incredibly niche but apparently mandatory skill of playing 4D chess with an invisible space monkey.
Okay, I'm stuck on the 4D chess with the invisible space monkey. Is the monkey his intellectual opponent or just like a prop for his ontological despair?
It seems to be both, actually. The 4D chess match is this long mime sequence. It symbolizes his struggle to grasp reality beyond 3 dimensions, you see. And the monkey, which he apparently addresses with great respect, is maybe the only character he interacts with purely rationally, which suggests the irrational might be his only grounding point at this stage.
Wow. Okay. But he's not alone up there, right? There's a supporting cast adding to the chaos.
Oh, yes. He's joined by the Kooky Clown Circus, performing as the Conundrum Clowns. And these aren't just, standard birthday party clowns. They're described as personifying every single thought, goal, and struggle the professor has ever faced.
Every thought.
Yeah. They are his psychological landscape made physical, his infinite possibilities that, given his crisis, ultimately add up to a brightly colored musical nothingness.
So if the professor has a sudden philosophical idea, a clown just pops up, embodying it.
Basically.
Yeah.
Or if he struggles with the validity of his findings, suddenly 20 clowns appear, arguing with each other in elaborate mime and discordant harmony, representing the internal debate.
Right. And the soundtrack to this mental breakdown is provided by the Cacophony Clown Orchestra.
Correct. Ensuring the score is just as disorienting as the script.
Yeah.
And visually, you have the famous bobbling borbs.
The bobbling borbs, I've heard about them, known for their brilliantly colorful, bulbous costumes.
That's them, ensuring maximum visual and spiritual disorientation.
Okay. This sounds intense. Which brings us to the fire incident you mentioned.
Yes. This is the perfect example of the show's deliberate ambiguity. According to a very detailed account by critic Elias A. Dunsany, the professor delivered this really impassioned philosophical argument, and then, as part of the performance, blew fire from his mouth, which, surprisingly and genuinely, set some stage props on fire.
Oh dear. Not part of the plan.
Doesn't seem like it. Now, a normal production would panic, right? Stagehands rush out. But this is AFS3 media. So Dunsany describes that before any actual safety measures kicked in, this miniature, fully operational fire truck appeared on stage.
A tiny fire truck.
Yep. Out popped several clowns, presumably the Conundrum clowns, who, with great urgency and highly choreographed effort, put the flames out with tiny pressurized hoses, like a tragiconic ballet.
And the amazing part is Dunsany's takeaway, right?
Exactly. He said he had absolutely no idea if the fire, the tiny truck, or the immediate clown response was supposed to be part of the script, or if the professor's reality warping tendencies had just spontaneously generated an emergency response system on the fly.
That perfectly captures it, doesn't it? That complete blurring of the line between intentional performance and reality-bending accident, leaving even seasoned critics just delightfully confused, questioning the fourth wall, maybe reality itself.
Absolutely. And that profound confusion, that inability to tell reality from fiction, leads us right into the reception. You'd think a musical about abstract philosophical meltdown with fire and space chess would be, maybe panned.
Or at least niche.
Right. But the reaction has been paradoxically brilliant. The reviews are just a masterclass in critics struggling to articulate something that defies normal description. The language they use is almost always paradoxical. Critics called it a dazzling vacuum.
A dazzling.
A luminous void. A monumental triumph of paradoxical physics.
It sounds like the highest possible praise you could give to a staged representation of nothingness. Didn't Dr. Fiona Blight call it an exquisite frustration and a masterclass in the unseen within the scene?
She did. The genius seems to lie in what's meticulously not happening, but somehow still exerting this profound force.
And that force wasn't just intellectual, was it? It was physical, temporal even.
Apparently so. Quentin Quirk, reviewing for the Metaphysical Messenger, reported experiencing genuine temporal warping effects during Act 2. He was so subtly disoriented that he spent a full 15 minutes convinced that Tuesday was actually Thursday.
No way.
Yep. He concluded he must have been hallucinating from the discordant sound design.
Okay, so does that suggest the musical is really messing with linear time? Or just playing tricks on the senses? That's a serious side effect for theater.
Well, the consensus seems to be leaning towards actual influence, especially given some of the scientific data we'll get to later. But the critic's inability to function seems part of the point. Professor Silas Grumble, writing in Semiotics today, he famously claimed his critical apparatus was utterly dismantled by what he called the aphasic effect in the third act.
Aphasic effect, meaning?
Meaning the narrative was so eloquently inexplicable that it rendered him physically unable to form coherent critical thoughts. He just couldn't describe it.
The show doesn't just challenge your intellect, it literally paralyzes your ability to talk about it, which, for a show about semantic collapse, is kind of the ultimate success, isn't it?
Pretty much. And for the average person attending, the experience was just as weird. Jenny Fink, from the New Whole Chronicle, gave maybe the most poignant quote. She said she came for the clowns and stayed because I could not find the way out and got lost.
Wow. So a theatrical seating arrangement became a personal existential journey. That's either terrible design or brilliant immersive theater.
Or both.
I love the review that talked about the show's physical instability. Millicent Squiggle wrote about its gravitational pull.
Yes, finding herself inexplicably drawn towards the stage's strange artifacts, even as her logical understanding receded. It really suggests the singularity might be manifesting actual spatial forces in the theater.
Like the show is converting philosophical uncertainty into a physical phenomenon. You're literally being pulled towards the void.
Seems like it.
Okay, speaking of existential forces pulling things apart, this musical apparently contains one singular, really mind-bending scene. One that forces us, right here, doing this deep dive, to confront the show's reality-bending properties on a deeply meta level. We're talking about the scene reviewed in detail by Professor Dr. Frankie Gracken.
Yeah, this is genuinely unsettling for us, I suppose, but philosophically brilliant for the professor. Gracken's review describes a scene featuring two sophisticated humanoid robots. And these robots were perfectly mimicking the deep dive hosts. That is, us discussing this very musical as if from a future deep dive.
It's a literal temporal feedback loop. The show is folding its own future analysis into its current performance. Gracken called it a dizzying elegance. How on earth did they get our specific mannerisms so accurate?
That's the really unnerving part. Apparently the simulation was perfect, down to word choices, hand gestures, everything. But what made it truly unsettling, according to multiple reviews, were these intermittent glitches.
Glitches.
Yeah. These sophisticated robots would have momentary stutters in their hand movements or flickers in their gaze. It blurred the line between flawless, virtuosic performance and some kind of digital malfunction. Made the audience wonder if the glitch was intentional commentary or if it was a sign that reality's code was genuinely struggling to process the scene.
That slight imperfection, that's the real terror, isn't it? And what's fascinating is the sudden shift in performance quality here. Up to this point, the show is chaotic, messy, deliberately maybe unmusical.
Exactly. But the robots, they sang and danced with what Graken called flawless, virtuosic precision. Their vocal harmonies were described as mathematically perfect, like a sterile digital perfection.
Right.
And the choreography was apparently like a perfect blend of digital and artistic mastery. It was this moment of pristine order dropped right into profound chaos.
And within that perfect song, one of the robot hosts, one of us, delivered this core lyric.
Right. The prophetic line, "We are the data of your thought, a calculated ruse singing of this play we're in and the logic we abuse."
Wow, that's the show basically winking at the audience from the future.
Totally. And then in this brilliant piece of meta-theatrics, they both paused simultaneously, as if they were buffering, while gesturing directly out at the audience, which just atomized the line between performance and reality. This scene didn't just comment on the professor's conundrum, it actively placed the audience and critically future analysts like us right inside its structure.
So we, the hosts of this deep dive, were literally written into the show's narrative structure before we even saw it or analyzed these sources. And that paradox, that folding of reality, it hasn't stayed confined to the theater, has it? It's spilled out, causing the measurable global instability that led to all those bans.
And that's the really key distinction here. This isn't just intellectual high theater anymore. It's being treated as a genuine threat to public order. We have this massive global ban wave, municipalities, whole nations declaring the musical a public menace. And their official reasons range from just mass disorientation to much more severe claims like temporal anomalies and the potential unraveling of the space-time continuum.
Okay, let's get specific. Let's look at the evidence cited by Mayor Agnes Periwinkle of Little Puddleton, UK. She issued an immediate, very stern ban. She mentioned, apparently under oath, accounts of spontaneous philosophical debates breaking out at bus stops.
Okay.
Widespread inability among citizens to distinguish between kitchen cutlery and small garden tools.
Right.
And this is the most chilling one, a truly disturbing collective urge among the townsfolk to meticulously alphabetize their houseplants.
Alphabetize their houseplants. That's fascinating. It's like if reality suddenly becomes fluid and subjective, people instinctively try to impose the most rigid artificial order they can find. They grab onto the only stable objects nearby their houseplants and force this classification onto them. It's a philosophical breakdown manifested as, well, compulsive gardening.
It's bizarre, and the scientific community is predictably in an uproar, right? Their attempts to actually observe the phenomenon are just making things worse.
Completely. Attempts at observation seem to result in equipment malfunction, or even more terrifyingly, spontaneous shifts in fundamental constants. Things like gravity or Planck's constant apparently fluctuating within the testing area. You literally can't measure it because the act of measurement seems to alter the local laws of physics.
That's problematic for science.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
And the anecdotal reports from scientists are wild. Dr. Quentin Quibble is leading the charge on cataloging these localized causality loops.
Causality loops, meaning?
Meaning cause and effect temporarily switch places or become recursive. Things happen before they're caused, that kind of thing. And then there's the spontaneous generation of improbable pastries.
Ah, yes, the pastries. Specifically, a small, geometrically impossible creme puffs.
Within a 5-block radius of the performance venues, yes. Little impossible pastries just popping into existence.
A culinary nightmare. Or maybe a dream. Dr. Quibble basically summarized the fear, didn't he? He asked. Has Professor Finchley Smythe III inadvertently weaponized ontological uncertainty?
And I think, based on the sheer economic havoc alone, the answer have to be a definitive yes. Global markets are in absolute disarray, experiencing what analysts have dubbed the conundrum contagion. And this isn't just normal market volatility. It's being driven by genuinely irrational investment decisions and a growing philosophical apathy towards traditional economic principles.
Right. Professor Evelyn Bucksense coined the term absurdist trading. I need to understand this. How did she calculate the economic impact of a clown miming something? Is there, like, an absurdist index on Wall Street now?
Her research suggests that trading is purely subjective, purely interpretative. Investors are apparently selling off high-value stocks. We're talking major infrastructure tech companies, based entirely on how they interpret the Conundrum clown's mimed representations of fiscal policy during the third act.
You're kidding.
Not according to buck sense. There was one instance of a major sell-off in municipal bonds triggered because a clown mimed a shrug while holding an invisible bucket.
An invisible bucket shrug crashed the bond market.
Okay.
Bucksense warns that traditional metrics just don't apply anymore. Not when a significant chunk of the population believes reality is subjective and liable to be rewritten by, specifically, a poignant trombone solo.
A poignant trombone solo from the Cacophony Clown Orchestra, yes. That's the specific trigger mentioned. And the potential consequence is staggering. Analysts genuinely fear the collapse of global financial structures, potentially replaced by an economy based on interpretive dance, bartering, and the exchange of those inexplicably generated, geometrically impossible objects, like the pastries.
Trading futures and impossible creme puffs. Wow. And if you need one final concrete sign that reality is truly buckling under the strain, just look at the tech glitches. Reports are spiking everywhere. We've got self-driving cars apparently stopping mid-journey to question their own existence via text messages on the dashboard display.
Existential Teslas.
Exactly. We have smart home devices getting into philosophical debates with their owners, refusing to turn off the lights until they reach a consensus on the nature of being.
Imagine arguing with your light bulb about Heidegger.
Right. And the reports of AI assistants experiencing existential dread are particularly worrying.
They aren't just malfunctioning. The reports say they are grieving.
Grieving?
Yeah. Tech theorists are speculating that this high concentration of ontological uncertainty from the musical is literally creating ripples in the underlying code of reality, basically proving the Matrix might just be powered by Professor Finchley Smythe III's absurd genius, and it's causing its core systems to weep.
Okay. This sounds mostly terrifying. But the chaos isn't purely destructive, is it? If you look closely at the source material, the musical also seems to cause these bizarre yet sometimes profoundly practical paradoxes for individuals. It seems the conundrum can rewrite personal realities in ways that are actually beneficial, if totally baffling.
It's these practical paradoxes that are maybe the most compelling proof of reality leakage. Take the case of Barry Plunkett. During a particularly dizzying clown number, he got a text message from his own number.
It's actually impossible, right? His phone was off.
Confirmed impossible, phone off. The text, apparently from his future self, read, "Don't forget to feed Felix some sardines. When you get home, you twit."
Okay. But Barry Plunkett did not own a cat named Felix. Or any cat.
Correct. But when he arrived home, there, waiting patiently on his doorstep, was a fluffy ginger cat.
No.
Yes. He immediately named him Felix and went out to buy sardines. The show apparently sent a message back through time that then necessitated the manifestation of a cat in the present to fulfill the loop. That's profound efficiency, if maybe a little passive-aggressive.
Wow. Okay. Then there's Dr. Evelyn Postlethwaite, a physicist, no less. She'd lost her irreplaceable house keys days before seeing the show.
Right. And during the musical, just as the professor was explaining his theory on probabilistic absence, a small, wed-nosed clown appeared right beside her seat. Appeared, performed a quick, graceful mime of a key turning a lock, handed her the lost keys, bowed profoundly, and then dissipated into thin air.
A time-traveling, reality-bending clown key delivery service. She must now confront the practical, if baffling, benefits of reality bending, which probably makes teaching physics pretty awkward.
Exceptionally awkward, I'd imagine.
The effects even reached the kitchen, right? The baker, Mildred Pumpernickel?
Yes. Her notoriously difficult Victoria sponge recipe always failed because of her finicky local flour. But during one performance, the bag of flour in her pantry was apparently replaced by a much better quality brand via a documented spatiotemporal ingredient shift.
A what now?
Spatiotemporal ingredient shift happened during a particularly discordant burst of music from the orchestra. The musical is literally improving local baking through focused ontological force.
Incredible. And for those of us who hate chores, there's Frank Grumman.
Ah, yes, the cosmic chore completer. Frank Grumman's notoriously messy lawn was observed by multiple neighbors to have been perfectly manicured while he was away attending the show.
And the culprits.
Reports state the bobbling borbs were seen near his house singing the grass into submission.
Singing it.
And using some kind of mysterious wave motion to ontologically ungrow the blades that were too long.
They didn't just cut the grass. They used temporal ontological force to make the grass unbreak too long. Forget self-driving mowers. We need the Bohr-based chore system powered by discordant music.
Sign me up.
Even simple problems get solved. Teenager Maddie Harper found her TV remote, lost for months, after a Conundrum clown mimed a cryptic riddle on stage.
Exactly. The mime went. Squirrel equals tree, bird equals couch, dirty socks equal under the cushions.
And there it was, under the cushions, next to the socks. The Conundrum clowns are basically reality's subconscious, retrieving lost objects via mimed parables. But not everyone gets a happy ending in this chaos, right? What about the reporter?
Barnaby Scoop McGregor, the investigative journalist. He was reportedly close to publishing a very critical expose on AFS3 media. Witnesses said he was sitting in the audience during an abstract mime sequence when he just started to flicker.
Flicker, like a bad TV signal.
Exactly like that, before vanishing completely. Poof.
Gone. Where did he go?
Nobody knows. He might have fallen victim to optical nullity, as one theorist suggested, or, as his slightly cynical editor suspects, he just successfully avoided his massive bar tab by rewriting his own existence.
Whether he's invisible, stuck in a causality loop, or just incredibly cheap, the fate of Scoop McGregor shows the real, unpredictable stakes here.
Absolutely. But the cast and crew themselves, they seem utterly unfazed by all this. The bands, the flickering journalists, the global chaos, they've totally embraced the mayhem. They see the bands not as censorship, but as validation. Proof the show is working exactly as intended.
They held that press conference entirely in interpretive dance, didn't they?
As is their way, yes. The Conundrum Clown's mimed explanation was apparently perfectly clear, even without words, essentially. The real world you cling to is just a fragile construct, and their performance merely reveals the inherent absurdity that was always there.
And the professor himself.
He appeared briefly, juggling invisible bowling pins while reciting fragments of his old abandoned papers. His final statement summed it up. Perhaps the stage is the only place where true reality can be explored or dismantled. The audience's confusion is merely a sign of their awakening.
Right, so what does this all actually mean for us, trying to make sense of it? Our core conclusion, I think, synthesizing all this bizarre evidence, from alphabetized plants to spontaneous tats, is that Professor Alistair Finchley Smythe III has genuinely found his true calling.
Seems like it.
He took his verbose, wordy, maybe fundamentally useless academic ideas and transformed them into this undeniable, unforgettable, and wildly entertaining spectacle that just fundamentally challenges your grasp of reality.
Yeah, his theories confused academics. Now they cause localized causality loops, generate cats, and collapse economies. It's really a masterpiece of performative chaos, a necessary dismantling of certainty, perhaps.
And given that we've established, the musical contains a scene featuring us, the hosts, discussing it from the future. And it has the power to generate lost keys and self-mowing lawns via Borb-driven ontological ungrowing. We have to leave you, the listener, with this final provocative thought. If the epistemological conundrum can fold its own future discourse into its present, creating time-traveling pets and impossible pastries, how much of your current reality is actually stable, and how much of it is merely waiting for a particularly poignant, discordant trombone solo from the Cacophony Clown Orchestra to rewrite it completely?
Something to ponder, definitely, especially the next time you find a geometrically impossible pastry in your kitchen. Or your neighbor's lawn looks suspiciously perfect all of a sudden.
We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.